This is the Assistant Original by Magic Mill. It has been manufactured in Sweden since 1939, where it was formerly owned by Electrolux of Sweden. And it is just a fantastic mixer that we have personally owned and used since 1992 and have just loved every minute of it. It features a 7-liter stainless steel bowl, a 600-watt motor with a 1-inch flat belt and a worm gear, which all you ladies out there, the nice thing about a worm gear is that it is quieter than most motors out there. It is also built to last, it's very durable, and it's a wonderful transfer of energy, so you're going to get a very efficient mixer that is built to last. It comes standard with, like I said, the stainless steel bowl, what you're going to use for mixing purposes for all your cakes, cookies, bread dough, everything. This is the roller and scraper. It also comes with a very nice dough spatula that you can scrape every bit of dough or cookie batter, cake batter off of the roller. It does come standard with a stainless steel dough hook. We actually do not recommend that you use that dough hook. Dough hooks tend to require a stiffer bread dough to be able to knead, which means you're going to have to add a little bit more flour. The roller and scraper is what the Europeans have been using since 1939. It makes a very, very soft bread dough. But using the roller and scraper, it has a little bit different technique when you go to mix up bread dough, which is what we're going to do next. It's also very easy to clean. Just think when you're done mixing cakes, cookies, bread dough, whatever, you take the bowl off, and this is what you clean. The bowl is completely dishwasher safe. They recommend that you wash the roller and the scraper in warm soapy water and just allow those to air dry, but that's it. No digging out from the bottom, anything. It's just very, very easy. Also, the open design of the bowl allows you to add ingredients towards the end. If you wanted to add raisins or cranberries or nuts or seeds to your bread dough towards the end of the kneading process, then it's very easy to add those in. This is the lid for the bowl, the cover. It also acts as the bowl for a lot of the optional attachments for this mixture, which we'll have to show you in a different video. But let's go ahead and get started mixing. We're going to move this one out of the way. The way that this mixer goes together, that's very, very unique and very different from any other mixer on the market. The scraper fits here on the side. The roller, you bring the arm is a spring-loaded arm, so you just move that to the center of the bowl. This pin goes down through the center of the roller, and then you allow that to come back to rest against the side of the bowl. What's unique about this mixer is that the bowl is actually what turns. The bowl turns, which in turn is turning the roller, and the scraper scrapes down the side of the bowl the entire time. So no stopping the mixer, having to dig up ingredients off the bottom of the bowl. It's doing all of that for you. By the roller pushing the dough up against the side of the bowl, it's also providing a very gentle knead, which is going to make a very soft bread dough, which is going to in turn make very soft finished loaves of bread. What makes this different is that you can actually adjust this arm, the knob here on the back of the mixer. This arm is adjustable so that you can move this in and out depending on how much dough you have in the bowl. It can handle as small as a 1-pound ball of dough I've done up to 9 pounds worth of dough with absolutely no problem at all. And you just adjust this arm and then lock the roller in place, the knob in place, and it can still go to the center and knead back and forth as that dough passes by, but it's locked so that it can't go back to the side of the bowl and inadvertently push the dough up and out of your bowl. So let's go ahead and get started. The way you're going to mix up bread dough with this mixer is you're going to start with all of your liquids first. So I am actually doing our basic dough recipe that's found in our Bread Becker's recipe collection. I'm actually doing a double batch of that recipe. So I used 3 cups of water there, and I used warm water. You don't want to do hot boiling water, and you don't want to do cold water. Yeast likes warm and moist, so I just did warm tap water. You don't have to be too precise there. I'm using extra virgin olive oil and raw honey as our sweetener. This recipe is really easy to memorize because it's equal parts oil and honey, and anytime you have that going on, you're going to measure your oil first and then your honey right on top of it, and that allows that raw honey to slide right out of your measuring cup. I'm going to go ahead and add my salt in with my liquids. Salt and yeast do not like each other, and your salt will actually kill your yeast if you add them in at the same time. We use a naturally mined real salt, and so you want to add that in with your liquid so that you make sure it gets good and dissolved. The two knobs on the front of the mixer, you've got your on-off knob, which also acts as your timer. You click it on just one time, and that's continuous on. It just stays on and mixes. And then the other knob is your speed control. Several years ago, they changed the wattage of this motor, and the current model is 600 watts. If you have an older assistant, then you probably have a 450 watt motor, so you might want to just check. With the 450 watt motor, you're going to need on the highest speed. But when they changed this machine to the current model with a 600 watt motor, it's actually the highest speed is too powerful to do your kneading on. So we're actually going to do like a 3/4 speed on that when we go to start mixing. So on the slowest speed, you've got your water, your oil, your honey, and your salt mixing. All that we have left to add is our flour and our yeast. Now this is where this machine is different from other kitchen mixers on the market. Other mixers that use dough hooks, you're just going to start dumping your flour in until the dough cleans the side of the bowl, and that's when you know, okay, I have enough flour and I can start my timer for kneading. This is totally different. With the roller pushing the dough up against the side of the bowl, it's never going to pull away. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to add half my flour, then I'm going to add my yeast in, because now I have this nice mushy batter consistency going on that the yeast is going to love. I'm going to add my yeast, and then I'm going to start adding the rest of my flour. It can stay in this form all day long. It doesn't matter. But once you start adding that flour, you need to move relatively quickly so that you don't get a false positive on having enough flour in there. Also, so that first cup of flour doesn't absorb too much of the moisture or start developing the gluten, which is what happens in the kneading process. You don't want that first cup to be overdeveloped by the time the last cup of flour is going in. So this is what we're going to do. The double recipe that I'm doing I should use 9 cups of flour, but we're going to see that amount changes on a daily basis depending on how much moisture is in the air. We're going to start on the lowest speed, and there's cup number 1, cup number 2, cup number 3, and number 4. Remember, we're going to do about half the flour and then add our yeast. So there's 4 cups of what should be 9 cups of flour for this recipe today. Sprinkle in our yeast. You can take the arm to the middle just to pick up any bits of flour or yeast. All right, now this is where we want to move kind of quickly. We're going to go 5, cup number 6. We're going to turn up our speed here. What we're going to do is we're going to take this arm to the center of the bowl and see if the dough follows it. Here's cup number 7. Basically what we're doing is we're giving that dough the opportunity to pull away from the side of the bowl. Did you see how the dough started to creep up the side? This is the point where you adjust this arm to make sure that the dough is being properly kneaded but not squishing up and out of the bowl. So there was 7 cups of flour. We pull this to the center. What we're looking for is it to form a donut around the roller. You want it to do it right away, and it didn't that time. So we're going to add 1 more cup of flour. So this is cup number 8 of what should take 9 cups of flour. We're going to move this to the center and see if it pulls away from the side of the bowl. It's starting to, we're starting to see a little bit of pulling away right there. It didn't do it quite fast enough, so I'm just gonna add like 1/4 cup more flour in there. We're gonna make sure that the speed is on about 3/4 of. Now we're gonna pull this to the center and see how that pulls away from the side of the bowl? That's how you know that you have enough flour. Now we're gonna set our timer to knead. A double batch like this is gonna knead for about 6 minutes. I do wanna show you though, that if you turned it off and you looked at that dough, it looks very wet and very moist. And normally you would say, there's no way that that's enough flour. It's just too wet. But the kneading process is actually what makes the dough smooth and elastic. So you don't want it to form a smooth ball before you ever start the kneading process, or it's gonna be way too much flour and your machine's gonna end up walking all over your counter. So let's set our timer here. And we're gonna move this to the side. And let's talk about kneading times. Like I said, with the 600-watt motor, you're not going to knead on high speed. It's just too powerful. Where you would use the highest speed though, is when you use the blender attachment. Also, this mixer comes standard with a double whisk bowl to do egg whites and whipping cream, things like that. You would use the highest speed when you're using that as well. And some of the other optional attachments, then you're fine to use the highest speed. But for bread making purposes, you're gonna wanna use it at about 3/4 speed instead of on high. Also, with the kneading time is gonna depend on if you're doing a single batch, a double batch of dough, a triple recipe, or even a quadruple recipe. The more dough you have in there, you're going to need to increase that kneading time by just a few minutes. A triple or a quadruple of that basic bread dough recipe in our cookbook is gonna need anywhere from 10 to 12 minutes. The nice feature about this mixer, though, is that when that timer gets down to 0, it actually turns itself off. So you don't have to worry about accidentally forgetting about your bread dough and it over kneading and walking away, and then it's this hard rock of a mess in there. It will actually turn itself off when that timer is up, which is a really, really nice feature. You want your dough to form a smooth ball in the last 1 to 2 minutes of the kneading process. Of course, with a double recipe like this, you're probably never going to see it turn into that ball of dough because of the amount of dough that's in there. With a single basic dough or 1 to 2 pounds worth of bread dough, you probably will see that ball of dough form in the last minute or so of the kneading process. And that's what you want. That's how you know that it has been properly kneaded, that the gluten that is naturally found in the wheat has been developed. And when that gluten has been properly developed, then the dough will stretch and rise as the yeast starts producing its gases. So that's what you're looking for with this mixer. Like I said, it's a little bit different technique in that you have to pull the arm to the center of the bowl just to give the dough the opportunity to pull away, whereas a dough hook, where the dough hook is stationary or the dough hook is what's turning inside the mixer, that's when you're just going to add flour until the dough pulls away. We've got about a minute or so left on the kneading time. You can see that the dough is looking very smooth. Like I said, with this amount of dough in the mixer, you're probably never gonna see it form a soft ball of dough, but you definitely want it to have this very smooth surface on it. You don't want the arm rocking back and forth as it goes by. That is a sign that you have too much flour. You can over knead dough. It is very difficult. You would have to knead this, what would normally take 6 minutes, for 15, 20 minutes to really over knead it to the point where it starts breaking down the gluten that's in the flour, and then it won't rise. But typically, if you're having rising issues, you probably have not kneaded long enough or at a fast enough speed. So that's definitely something to look at as well. With a triple recipe, there it goes. It turned itself off, and you can see how smooth and shiny the dough is. I can touch it. It doesn't stick to my fingers. It's very smooth and very elastic. You can let your bread dough rise right here in this bowl if you want to. The way you take the roller and scraper off is pull that pin up, loosen your arm. This is where the dough scraper comes in handy to scrape every bit of dough off of this roller. Scraper just pulls up. And that's it. You can certainly put the cover that comes with the bowl, you can put that back on and let your bread sit right here and rest, or you can do a full rise till it doubles in size. You can also let it rest for just 10 minutes while you get your pans ready and things like that, and then go ahead and shape your dough. Just remember, once you shape your dough into whatever it is you're making, you must let it rise till double in size before you bake it again. So I hope this helps answer a lot of your questions about the Assistant Original by Magic Mill, and we look forward to seeing you again.